the Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today, I'm here with Joe Jesuele of HomeJab. Joe, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Hal. Appreciate it.
So what was your background before joining HomeJab? What did you do before this?
Well, I have basically a real estate background. From the day I graduated college to today, I've been in real estate. I started as a broker for Marcus and Millichap. It's an investment real estate company. So I was dealing with large investment properties like shopping centers and apartment buildings. I got involved in development projects with real estate investment trusts. And that was right around the time the market crashed in 2008. So we had a few shopping center projects that were sort of just put on hold and due to the market crash. And so I left that sector and started in the residential lending side of the business, working at a bank and a mortgage broker, and then eventually started a company called Liberty Financial, which became one of the first online mortgage lenders to provide quotes and also allow users to take applications completely online. That was right around 2009. And then from there, actually around the same time I was starting Liberty Financial, I was also involved in smaller scale development projects, building houses in some of the outskirts of Philadelphia where I live.
Great. So what led you to start work in the real estate media production space? Why did you choose that sector?
Well, it was actually when I was building houses that it became really obvious that there was an opportunity there. So I was building these houses pretty much during the Great Recession. So not a lot of luxury homes were selling. I wanted to give myself the best chance of selling properties in a really tough market. So for my own homes that I was selling, I would produce 3D models. I would do walkthrough videos. I would take drone videos, and everything that I built and did that way, sold in less than 30 days. So had some success, and I attributed the good visual content that I was creating to that success, and realized that really no one else was doing this. No other agents in my market were doing this. So I figured there was a business just providing that service to other real estate agents and other sellers of real estate.
Well, great. So for those investors who want to invest in this space, what's your advice for them? What should they think about before they write that first check?
Well, it's a high volume business, but low margins. So you want to invest in companies that have good software, good technology, so that they can scale. It's a service business, but you have to sort of invest in companies that are more tech service so that they can scale. And I also think that investing in companies or people that have relationships in the real estate sector at the enterprise level, at the corporate level is good, just because you need sort of like that recurring revenue in place in order to really grow the business. So if you're investing, you really need to have both technology, good technology, and enterprise relationships.
So how is this industry evolving? What's happening with it as far as growth rates and companies engaging in it?
Well, when we first started, everyone was pretty much doing photography, and there were some crazy things like automated slideshows of photos that would kind of zoom in and zoom out, and it was kind of antiquated. So things have changed quite a bit. Now we're doing virtual tours, new technology like drones, 3D, virtual staging. These are all things that are becoming just typical in any residential listing, no matter what the sales price is. In terms of the growth rate, in most of the companies that I talk to that are doing what I'm doing, I mean, it's 20, 25% or more. A lot of growth going more to marketplaces as opposed to individual photographers, although there's still a lot of photographers as well. And in terms of just how many companies are engaged, I'd say by far the biggest sector is just freelance photographers. So individuals or small teams, most doing under 1 million sales. And there are about 50 companies that are, I would consider marketplace models, that are all doing around 1 million to at the most 5 million. But there's only a small group that are doing really over $2-3 million in sales. The top company in the industry is doing 20 million, and that is right around a 2% market share. So you can see it's a very fragmented market, and most of the companies are small individual freelancers.
So what are the challenges in starting a business in this sector? Is it regulatory? Is it market? Is it technical? What holds people back from joining in?
I would say it's more economic, like just the economic numbers of the business, because it's a low margin business. You have to have some level of scale in order to, be profitable. So it's tough because what ends up happening is that a lot of the owner operators, the people that are photographers, are still going out and doing shoots. And it's very difficult for them to handle growing the business at the same time, handling all the administrative tasks and still going out every day and doing the shoots themselves. So it becomes a challenge in terms of growing the business and scaling it, because there's just so many photographers that are just in the weeds, so to speak. And because it's a low margin business, you really have to have a great deal of volume in order to be profitable enough and have the cash flow to grow properly and invest in sales and marketing and having the administrative staff to handle the scheduling and delivery of files, post-production, that sort of thing. So everything has to sort of have its own department, and it's very difficult if you're an owner-operator or a photographer to have enough time in the day or just have the bandwidth in order to manage all of that.
So how does HomeJab fit into this landscape? Where are you on the scale of it, and what exactly is your differentiation in there?
So currently we're in the top, I'd say 6 or 7 on a national scale. We're 3.2 million in revenue and growing at an average of 25% a year just organically. The thing that really sets us apart is the tech that we built, the software. We were one of the first companies to build an automated scheduling system, very much like on-demand apps like Uber and Lyft. We were one of 2 companies that have built a completely automated post-production process, and that's based on machine learning. So what we did was we were about to launch an app that takes the human element out of the editing and post-production process and relies on a machine to enhance photos automatically. We trained this machine based on hundreds of thousands of photos that we had edited over the years. And what this does is it reduces the costs of editing down to a fraction of a penny and reduces the turnaround times down to just a few seconds. So there's basically no other company in the industry that is currently doing that. And that's how we basically set ourselves apart.
So where do you see this sector going? What new technologies and what direction do you think it will take in the coming 5 years?
Well, I mean, one thing that's really interesting is virtual reality, and people have been talking about that for 4, 5, 6 years or more, and it never seems to really catch on in real estate. Not a ton of people have the headsets, and it honestly doesn't look that great right now in terms of the resolution. I think you need at least 8K quality inside of a headset for it to look decent, and even 8K doesn't look that great. So we have our eye on VR and 3D technology in general, but it just hasn't really caught on quite yet. It's still very the industry as a whole is still very photo based and video.
Well, great. Well, in the last few minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things is just what people can do or what they will be able to do just on their phones. And as I was saying, like the VR resolution needed is at least 8K. What can a phone do in order to kind of capture that resolution? And so it's going to be really interesting to see, like, as cameras get better and better on phones, how that sort of changes the industry. And companies like HomeJab are just become even more based on software and post-production and editing, as opposed to actually sending people out to physically capture the property.
Well, certainly the mobile solves the problem of having a device in which to look at it. So if you can make it look much more interesting on a mobile, you solve a big issue there. Do you think that's going to be the next platform, is just building on top of the mobile a better experience rather than going into the AR, VR world with the goggles?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of why people are not into VR necessarily, and just really just want to consume good photos, because everyone's just on their phone and just thumbing through photos constantly on Instagram and Facebook. So they're just kind of used to that I think photos, good quality photos are always going to be number one due to the just everyone consuming this content on their phone. But video close second, because once you're interested in the property, you want more information. You want to see more of it, and the photos aren't enough. So after you see the photos, it's nice to kind of have that second step before you actually go see the property. And consuming video on the phone, I think, is also very important as well.
Yeah, it's very helpful. So how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Well, our website is homejab.com, and email me directly. It's just joe@homejab.com. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. Or I'm on LinkedIn, of course, Joe Jesuele. So, but email is typically the easiest way.
Well, great. We'll put those in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Thanks so much, Hal. I appreciate it.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.